was reading this, it came in mind that it is a long practice to sacrifice men in the sacrifice. And it came in mind that in 1988 there was a big case from Dutroux in Belgium. And it was very interesting because he was accused of killing babies. There were many baby skeletons were found around his house, and he was telling that I will mention the names who are involved, and it goes to the family of the Queen of the Netherlands. And since then, it was completely stopped, the whole investigation, etc., etc. And we are speaking here also about the king, so that connection came in mind. And so this kind of things are still going on in this Kali Yuga, maybe more than in this Yuga. And Prabhupada also mentioned, for example, that there is one kind of tribe in Africa, and they have Sunday feasts. You read this? The Sunday feast is their grandfather, the grandfather. That is their Sunday feast. So that is still going on, all this kind of things. I was hearing also that cannibalism is increasing at this moment. And because why it is, because we are speaking about modes of material nature. We have sacrifice in the mode of goodness. And asafala, what is the exact word? Avala akanksibi. So there is a very nice sloka with it connected. Kamanya Vakata, Ma Falisu Kadasana, Makama Fala Hetu Boer, Medesam Kosvapramani. And that the sacrifice in the mode of goodness is that we are entitled, we can do this duty, but we are not entitled for the result of our activities. Why it is coming so many times in the Bhagavad Gita? Because we have the tendency as living entities, especially we come from the background of conditioned life, that the activities we do for fruitive activities. For example, we go for book distribution. I experience myself. The first years were so tough because I was in Amsterdam distributing books, and sometimes 2 small books went, sometimes 5 small books, and sometimes I was almost crying on the street that what I'm doing here, I'm alone and nobody have interest. Because I was attached to the result, I wanted to see at least that some books were distributed. But by doing our activities, by doing the activities that will become purified, and we continue for the pleasure of Prabhupada, we continue for the pleasure of the Acaryas of Krishna in this material world. And then slowly we are coming to the higher platform that we do it as in a selfless mood. Then we have the sacrifice in the mode of passion. In the mode of passion, that is the mode of passion, that we want to do the activities for some material benefit. And we can recognize if we are honest in our activities or that is still relevant. We are cooking and we are expecting appreciation, we are expecting that devotees will say, oh, very, very nice Prabhuji, very nice that you do this, very tasty, etc., etc. So still, and if this glorification or this appreciation is not there, then in the heart we feel dissatisfied, or dissatisfied because we are not appreciated for that. But we should always understand that Krishna is there, and they will be very satisfied if we do it in a selfless mood. The offering and our cooking, all our activities in devotion service. And then we are coming to the sacrifice in the mode of ignorance, tamakun. Ignorance is without guidance of Shastra, the sacrifice is, or without Vedic hymns, or without prasad distribution. It's interesting because we were talking about that with the Harinam, it should be prasad. So it's very important by this kind of sacrifices, the prasad distribution should be there. Prabhupada, I was also reading this in the Mood and Mission of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was emphasizing this so many times, that there is a program, whatever program we have in the city, public program, prasadam should be there. And it is, will become complete the sacrifice. So it's very important point to consider. But what we are doing is ultimately spiritual sacrifice, the spiritual faith sacrifice. And we are talking about Kriteyat Dyayato Vishnor and Trateyam Dyato Makarai Dwapare Parisamyamyam Kale Dariketanat. So we have in all the yugas we have also a certain kind of sacrifices in the Treta of in the Satya Yuga there was the sacrifice of tapasya and tapasya, austerities, and in Treta Yuga we have the sacrifice of that there the performance is sacrifice. Then we have the Dwapara Yuga, we have deity worship, of worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And in Kali Yuga, the performance of sacrifice is the Hare Krishna mantra. It came in mind that we had very nice sacrifice in Radhadesh. Holy name is sacrifice, but the how to perform the sacrifice is also connected with that. The consciousness should be meditated on the Supreme Lord by doing the sacrifice. And Bhakti Maharaj gave one time the prohibition for brahmacharis to go to the Mela, Ketu Mela in Mayapur. So why he did this? Why he gave the prohibition to go to a Mela? It looks all very transcendental. Because the attitude, the consciousness of many who are coming to this kind of Melas is more for the performance, the showing, becomes show. You can see the Ketananandis, big muscles, and nowadays they have beards, etc. And the Matachis, they're coming in their best outfits, and 2 hours they are taking care that everything will be there, perfume, etc. The Gopis did also this. If you read in the Krishna book, the Gopis were completely, but everything was for Krishna, not for the opposite sex. So that is very, very important in this kind of sacrifices. In the sacrifices, the consciousness and the understanding why we should do it for Vishnu is very important. For that reason, it's also very important to have regular classes with these Melas. So you have 1 hour and then 15 minutes class should be there. The tattva of the holy name, the tattva of Krishna, etc., etc. That in this consciousness we do the sacrifice of the holy name. So that was a very nice point Bhakti Maharaj gave. And that the mood of how the mood is to engage in this kind of sacrifices is very, very important. Otherwise it can easily degrade to some material kind of consciousness or material kind of a performance. And a few years later, I was also witnessing that it is like this. And there was some kirtan and mela, and I was not participating, but I was walking through the temple. And then I saw that one Kirtananandi and one Mataji, they were attracted to each other. It was very clearly visible, and they were connecting. So that was the result of the kirtan, so not a result to please the Lord Vishnu in that connection. So in every activity, Krishna consciousness is also sacrificed. And we can see that how Prabhupada, his every breath, his every action was sacrificed out of compassion to attract the living entity to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. He is one of the examples in our life that's how to come to this platform 100% engaging in this sacrifice for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. It's inconceivable. And one servant, he was explaining that Prabhupada was, even when he was, sometimes he was dreaming, he had a conversation about Krishna Katha with his servant, and then suddenly it looked that he was falling asleep, Prabhupada. But a few minutes later he woke again and he continued with the preaching where he stopped. The same words. So the Prabhupada was, even in his dreams, he was continuing this sacrifice of the Supreme Lord. I was speaking a few days ago and with devotee from Canada and was asking, it was real or not real, because one time one devotee, he showed that Gopa Krishna Maharaj, he was in his sleep, he was doing IT. And I was thinking, I was asking if it was real or that was some made by artificial intelligence. And he was telling, yeah, actually it was real. There were actually many, many other videos like this. So this kind of consciousness that in our dream we continue Krishna consciousness is possible. It's possible if we become really absorbed in our activities. Myself, I have a small example also that in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, that I tried to become a devotee, it was dreams were not Krishna consciousness. The dreams were for sure not Krishna consciousness. But slowly it is transforming. It's transforming. I don't claim that it is always Krishna consciousness, but I remember one time that I was sleeping, and in that dream I was distributing books, and there was a very attractive body, a woman. She tried to attract me, and I gave as reason that I could not come, that I had to go for book distribution. That we can come more to this kind of consciousness that we become actually really absorbed. I think it was in the marathon or something, that we become absorbed in our service, that it becomes that it becomes 24 hours. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj and Prabhupada gives actually also very important instructions in this connection. That before sleeping, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj explains, we should chant the holy name. And in the morning, if we awake, we also chant the holy name. And what will happen? We will come to the platform that in our sleep we also chant the holy name. So it is very good possible. And Prabhupada mentioned this to get the consciousness of Krishna also during our sleep is to read. Everybody knows. To read before sleep. What we should read?
Krishna book?
Yes, Krishna book. And also Prabhupada mentioned about Krishna book, if you want to have personal association of me, you read the Krishna book. So it is very, very important thing to come to this platform. I am guilty of this, that I tried a few times in spiritual life to read Krishna book, but every time it goes off. I don't know why. It is after 2 weeks, then I read with some devotee, and after 2 weeks somebody has something and then it stops. And I tried myself a few times and also some other it stops. So, but it's very important instruction. You can have the example of Chaitanya Maharaj. Chaitanya Maharaj was one time in Tirupati, and there was a question, or he can get a brahmachari to read the Krishna book before sleeping. He's reading since 40 years, now probably 50 years, Krishna book, half hour before sleep. And the result is that every word of the Krishna book he knows. He knows, he can recite completely the stories. Every word of Prabhupada is writing. It's really inconceivable, but this is the absorption we should strive for. This is the absorption that Pralananda Maharaj sacrificed his time. So 24 hours a day. His Pralananda Maharaj knows the Bhagavad Gita, every word Prabhupada, he knows. And how he comes to this kind of absorption, and that is very good visible, because you can see Pralananda Maharaj has always, if he goes for traveling or out of the door, he has the Bhagavad Gita with him. And if he is sitting, he's taking the Bhagavad Gita. If he goes in the car, he closes the door and he takes the Bhagavad Gita. And that for 40, 50 years. So this is the absorption, the sacrifice of all your time, but actually make the consciousness will become completely absorbed in Krishna. Everything, our activities will become dedicated to Krishna. Every aspect in our life will become Krishna consciousness. So this is a very, very important thing to understand, and also important to see how we actually can evolve to this kind of platform. How, and because in the beginning it will be normal that there will be some motive in our activities. We do certain kind of activities to, and some material contamination will be there. But we should understand that the Srimad Bhagavatam, what we are reading now, is actually give us the interest to come to this perfect kind of consciousness. That's what Punya Shavna Kirtanam, Ridantan Ritam, that Prabhupada gave yesterday a lecture, and this lecture was about the sacrifice of hearing. So it was very interesting, because Prabhupada gave a class and some devotees were walking away. And Prabhupada was annoyed with this. Look to this restless kind of behavior. We should hear what the Acarya is telling. We should hear what the Shastra is giving to us. It's not that we can have better engagement during the class, Prabhupada mentioned. That is the whole purpose of Krishna consciousness, and the whole purification process is the hearing process. Vasudeva Kataprasana. That is the sacrifice what is very, very pleasing to Vasudeva. It's very, very pleasing to Krishna if we can absorb our mind in the class and also meditate on what is given in the class. Because what will happen otherwise, and the discussions, and conversations during the day, that will come from the mental platform. It will be, and we will start to discuss about devotees, or we will start to discuss about other material inclinations, what is given by the material mind. So if we are not absorbed in this kind of Krishna Katha, and we can see in the Shastra so many glorification about Krishna Katha, how it purifies, how Krishna will be situated in the heart. And also Paramatma will purify our heart from the material kind of inclinations we have in that connection. And that is also what Prabhupada gave also in this class. He emphasized this. His spiritual master, he was and recognizing him, right? Because he was so much adept in hearing. And when there was one and Pandal program, and in here I don't know exactly, but Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. And in the Pandal program, many devotees were there in the beginning. So many disciples were listening to Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. But gradually, one by one, every disciple had some other things to do, or some became tired. After 2-3 hours to hear a class, it's not so easy, 2-3 hours hearing class. But if it goes to 4 or 5 hours class, then it becomes very, very difficult thing, this sacrifice to this austerity, to hear the Krishna Katha. But one by one they left, the disciples, and at the end there were maybe 5-6 disciples still remaining. Was the most senior disciples of Vasudev, what was his name? Vasudev. Yeah. And Ananta Vasudev, and some other disciples they were hearing. Ananta Vasudev was very interesting. He was so much absorbed in this sacrifice, in this hearing of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj, that many disciples who could not tolerate sitting so much in the class, or who were busy with other services, at the end they were asking Ananta Vasudev to summarize the class. So for 1 hour he was summarizing the class. Ananta Vasudev, for 1 hour he was speaking what were the topics, and exactly he was Shrutidara. He could remember in one time what was spoken, he could remember. He got this and mercy of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. It's really amazing. So 1 hour after the class, he started to recite the most important points of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. So he was completely absorbed in the Harikatha. So but Prabhupada was one of these who were absorbed in the Harikatha of spiritual master. He was listening, and he was telling later that I could actually understand so many things. I did not understand what he was speaking about Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj, but I was attentive to, and for that reason I am able to speak now. That is a very important point in that connection also. So once we want to become a preacher, we want to glorify the Supreme Lord in this material world. First, it's important to get this ability, to get this kind of consciousness that we hear patiently what the Acaryas are speaking to us, what Shastra is speaking to us, what our spiritual master is speaking to us. Because once that is not done, then easily we come to the kind of speculation, or we start to deviate. It's very important in this connection to understand actually the process of hermeneutic. How we what are the theories of applying the knowledge in our life? Because they did some enquete, they did, and it was very interesting. That was about the moon landing. So the moon landing, they were maybe 1,000 people were asked about the moon landing, and many people they told their interpretation, how they saw what happened at that moment, what they were doing, etc., etc. And very interesting thing is that 6 months later, again, they came back to the same people. And they were again, what you experienced at that moment. And the really amazing thing is that most of the people were telling a different thing than they were telling after the moon landing. It's amazing. And one person was telling, and then they came later, but you was telling this before. And one person was telling, yes, maybe I said like this, but actually it is like this. But I said no. So that is a very important thing, that this, the three modes of material nature, it's changing. It's changing this kind is changing the three modes. We start to see through the three modes of material nature the things. So to do the sacrifice of hearing in the proper moods, in the proper consciousness, in the mode of goodness, is the entrance ultimately to become purified. We cannot become purified by if the knowledge will become contaminated by the mode of ignorance or by the mode of passion. It came in mind also one time I was giving class in Ceylon, I think in 2012, and quite a lot of things came in the class. But what happened after the class, some Kuroko boys, they came and they said, and they were joking because I made a joke in the class, and that is what they remembered, the joke. So that was quite it came in the mind. It was quite impressive. That's quite interesting. So you make one joke, and what they remember is the joke. They did not remember actually the whole what Prabhupada was giving to us in the purport and what I tried to give in the class. So because there is certain contamination in the consciousness that we hear, Prabhupada is also telling this example, that we are wrapped in attention if we are walking and some discussion is there and we hear our name. Immediately we are in rapt attention, what is spoken about it. So there the emphasis is on our false ego. False ego, we are very much emphasizing, and there is a rapt attention in that connection. Or when there is some pradyalpa about devotees, suddenly we don't remember what it's in the class, but we are very eager to hear what are they speaking about this devotee. So this contamination is very difficult to actually come to the purificatory process in that connection. So for ourselves is so how we can come to this kind of hearing, how we can come to this kind of purification process, then we have actually to approach the devotees who are wrapped in attention, who are absorbed in Krishna Katha, and who are doing the activities for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, who are doing this in the mode of goodness. By serving them, we can actually get these blessings of the holy name. We can get the blessings of the Acaryas, and this kind of quality will also come in our consciousness. For that reason, it's very important to understand this principle, what is working in that connection, because if we are wrapped in attention in pradyalpa, or to hear some talking about other devotees, what will happen is that we get this bad quality in our heart. So that is very interesting in that connection. It's one reason more to walk away in that connection, to walk away at that moment that this kind of things are happening. And that it is so powerful and that it is so subtle came also in mind that one time I was in Tirupati and some devotees, they were criticizing some other devotee. Maybe it was not even criticizing, but it was leaning to criticizing. So they were talking and not not in a positive way. And I was hearing this. Some other I was hearing this, and then at one moment I was thinking, better go away. But the feeling in the heart was very bad. I don't know how it came, that and in the heart was very bad. And then I got the inspiration in the heart. So let me go to the devotee where they were talking about and ask me forgiveness for this. And that's very interesting what happened. So I went to this devotee and I said, Pauji, please forgive me. I was hearing that some other devotees were criticizing you. And this devotee, he did not understand why I came to him. But interesting thing happened. I walked away and was so much, the heart looked that the Paramatta was jumping, was so much happy. Then I understood that Krishna was very satisfied. He was very satisfied with this. But we can learn from this that it is a very, very subtle thing. It is a very subtle thing. So that means that the Paramatma is dissatisfied if we are hearing these kind of things. So we will not get a connection. That's the reason there is no tears by chanting the holy name. Prabhupada was mentioning this, I think, also in the Prabhupada purport. Probably. But that's, dit is if the heart is still framed, there will be no tears chanting holy names. But actually it's very natural. It's a natural condition of the living entity to cry by the pure holy name. The tears automatically will appear in the heart or outwardly. So that is a very interesting thing in that connection. So the sacrifice of the holy name, if we can understand, if we make progress in chanting the holy name, if we chant in a pure way, that actually tears will fall from the eyes in that connection. So it's a good criterion. Prabhupada also mentioned this in that connection, that the advancement of Krishna consciousness is seen, how many tears we actually will fall in that connection. So we can learn in this connection what we are reading now about sacrifice, how we are actually can come to the platform that we don't do it in the mode of passion, the sacrifices that we are doing for some material benefits, or that we start to do it in the Afal Kongsibi, that we do it without expecting any fruitive activity, the fruits of our activities. And then we can come actually to the platform of the personalities like Janananda Maharaj. Janananda Maharaj is a very great example for us in that connection. We are very much benefited in that connection, that we are under his guidance. He was. I remember that one time we were doing marathon, book marathon, and from morning till night he was engaged. Janananda Maharaj. He was preparing the books in the morning. He went himself for book distribution, and for me that was more than enough. But then we came back in the temple, and then he was contacting devotees for the books course, other places in France, and he was doing other things, so email, 24 hours sacrifice. The 24 hours sacrifice for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is very, very rare and very, very much inspiring to have still this kind of examples in that connection, in the movement, these Prabhupada disciples who are completely dedicated in that kind of services. We have so many examples are still there in the movement, like Sivaram Maharaj and Sankarshan Prabhu. He's still Prabhu, you know him? Sankarshan Prabhu? He took sannyas already. He was on the sannyas list. But anyhow, but these examples are so important in our spiritual life that we and get guidance and take the dust of the lotus feet in the form of service. The dust of the lotus feet means we serve them and we try to assist them in the mission of Srila Prabhupada in this material world. Then we are actually assured of perfection, and we are assured to come to the perfectional stage of life. So this is a small thing I can tell about the sloka. There are not so many points actually. The only point I can take from this is the sacrifice. Maybe somebody has some question or some doubt. You don't have questions on the phone, eh? In Bogota they have like this system. Okay.
Still looking
Okay.
at
Srila Prabhupada ki. Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Acarya Prabhu ki.
Ki. Oh, Amazon.